Okay, for those of you who are here, and those of you who will see this on YouTube or wherever else it ends up, welcome to Pen and Sword. Our feature this week is the incomparable Gigi Arcadia. I cannot say enough about this woman, so I won't bother because it would all sound like hyperbole. I will say that she is brilliant and necessary, and let it go at that. Um, we're going to let another brilliant, necessary person warm up the mic a little bit. So let's roll, y'all. Sandy, honey.
Here we are. Hello, Vietnam. I meant good morning or afternoon. What is up? Okay, all jokes aside, 3 pieces. I'm gonna warm up one in notes to these beautiful ladies and everybody else who has reached out, sent love during my time of healing. This is an old article I wrote about my mama. Here we go. Not my Ama's daughter. And I'm going to include a quote by Miss Maya Angelou. Here we go. To describe my mother would be to write about a hurricane in its perfect power, or the climbing, falling colors of a rainbow. I come to you as a 5-year-old little Mexican girl, just trying to find my place in my mother's kitchen. My mother's kitchen was always more of a forbidden Batcave than what you see on TV, where suburban mothers welcome their children, always smiling and baking cookies. In my case, crossing the swinging door into that kitchen, seeing her in a haste to meet this pressing deadline, to cook what seemed to be an impossible meal, always left me anxious. It was not an inviting place. She never turned around to greet me. I always asked if I could help. She always ignored the first 2 times I asked and answered only after that with, "No, I don't need help. Just go into the living room with your dad and brother and get out of my way." I always left after she dismissed me, a pattern that would teach me to become cold when love does not go my way. I would then search companionship with my father and brother in the living room only to hear, "Go in the kitchen with your mother." That part always hurt the most. How they say around the way, ni de aquí, ni de allá, not from here and not from there. This constant back and forth taught me to find a place to belong in books. On weekly trips to the library, I would check out the maximum amount allowed and read them all in one sitting. These fictional stories allowed me to enter these welcoming worlds, a place without rejection, allowing me to peacefully look in on a character's journey. This would later manifest in my ability to observe people quietly and take in their energy. Books allowed me to adopt the love shown to characters, which felt like a foreign custom, not allowed in Mexican households. I would not understand my mother's inability to show affection until decades later. My mother came to this country with the sole purpose of surviving in a way that would allow her to send money back home. She was technically a minor, but thrust into the ways of adulthood, responsibilities, following orders blindly, and being trained into a future esposa, a wife. This is a very common path for many young Mexican women. This path does not allow for discovery of the self, time to process existing childhood traumas, or exploring options that don't include being a servant to their husbands. So, my mother became what was expected of her, losing any chance of finding her voice. During the time she was with my father, she was not seen. She operated as a working wife and full-service housemaid. Emotional work with the children was just not a priority. I also believe if someone had taught her how to love, she would have figured out the level of toxicity her marriage had submerged her in. At this time, she had grown accustomed to living underwater. It would take 10 years for her to be shaken into reality and made aware of how depleted her oxygen levels were. She would be discarded by a narcissist and forced to be a sole provider for 3 kids in a dimly lit house with an unforgiving mortgage. I invite you to take this journey with me as I go back 2 generations back and highlight the forgotten path of women who deserve their stories told. Stories that will help shed light on what it is that made them the pillars of strength or withering petals too delicate to maintain the rose that was expected of them. I am the third rose who found a crack in the cement and bloomed anyway, sometimes without a way, but always because of them. Thank you. Okie dokie.
One kind of hurt my heart a little bit.
That is a piece that's been in print and it's only been shared on 2 mics, but for the lovely Jiji, we brought it out. Also, I'm gonna share one small tiny poem. This is a scribble scrabble, as I like to tell Stacy, and work in progress, definitely. I decided it was time to cut the last ties to what defined my womanhood. It had been 39 years since these tubes had decided whether or not I duplicated genetically. 39 years of pain, struggle, living in limbo. I was born a mother to the universe, never felt the need to watch a seed grow from my soil. I avoided the responsibility of being attached to a tiny version of me, mostly because the tiny version of me was still hiding from the boogeyman. Now I hold her hand and we boogie toward a healing journey together. In ode to the fallen fallopian tubes, thank you. That is all for tonight. Thank you for listening, my dearest dolls.
Goodness, I love them both.
Those were wonderful.
I feel like it would be sort of, I don't know, semi-blasphemous to even try and follow that with anything, except for the woman who is going to hurt the mic right now. I have been waiting for this all week long. As I say, in an introduction for a piece I just wrote, he is as bright and dangerous as a falling star. Take the mic, Jiji.
Ah, hello. So I have a compilation of poetry about like love and grief and loss, because that's been the reality of my past few years after the passing of my mom and having to kind of move back to Massachusetts. All right, so this first one is called Red Door. Healthy love exists and I know it, reads written in white on a red painted door in a place I've never been before. Shared on a social media story, it's about her, tall with dark curls and eyes I've only imagined about. The message is about her. Yet on social media, everyone can see the red painted door that I've posted. Not knowing who I'm talking about, and I see someone's name, I no longer speak, a cluster of vowels that still taste sour. Healthy love exists and I know it, but not with you. Not with you, with your brown eyes that made me forget what hometown was, forget what home feels like. And I wonder if you wonder who I'm talking about now. Healthy love exists. And even if it wasn't something you could provide for me, I hope you find it. I hope you find it in eyes that look at you like green eyes now look at me. I hope you find it when you push hair away from your lover's face, because my smile is now tucked neatly behind curls. Healthy love exists and I know it. And even if it's for a fraction of a moment, I'm so grateful to finally see it. So that's my first poem. I'm just gonna keep on going. This one's called Engagement Rings and Other Things I No Longer Need. What do you do when the engagement ring you wanted to order her is selected in size, cut, and color, and you no longer need it anymore? After 8 years of loving, can you click it out of your cart? It doesn't feel or sound as heavy as having to return one in hand, but God, it feels the same. What do you do when you wanted to propose next spring on a trip to Chicago? Do you even dare step foot in the O'Hare airport? Do you even dare to travel west again? Or do you gerrymander the map and tell her, these are the states that you can go, and these are the states where I have to stay? What do you do when she made you fall in love with the city, feels like what home should be, only to now be homeless yet again, just housed, just not in the cold, even if it doesn't feel like your home? What do you call it when you have an engagement ring on pre-order and you don't need it anymore? Anything other than abandoned, and anything other than at 27 starting over again? And what do you call it? Anything other than heartbreaking. And then my next one is called Quiet. This is one of my favorite ones. I'm searching for a word under altars in church parking lots. What do you call someone who's religious with no God, other than a soft-spoken prayer whispered on the end of a cigarette? I'm searching for a word under tongue still sour from communion. What do you call a person who's religious with no one listening, other than a child in a home with parents too busy to listen to every little thing? Now an orphan with no words to say. I'm searching for a word hands raw from praying. What do you call someone who's religious without a God, anything other than abandoned? And I'm searching for a word on blood-stained knees, too many unanswered prayers in pews, in hospitals, in oncology units. What do you call someone who's religious without a God? I'd like to know what to call myself and where to kneel for my next confessional. This one is another one of my favorite ones. This one's called Roadkill. I think this might be my favorite poem I've ever written. I think about the first time I saw a deer in Minnesota on the side of the road. In the Midwest, no one stops for pedestrians, let alone deer. I think about the time my car slid off the road, sliding into a snowbank. No one stopped to help me, just maneuvered around me. I am now the deer. I am now the thing to be passed by. I remember when I was 18 and I pulled my car over, when I saw a car crash into a tree, the driver now seizing, and I pulled her body out of the car while a man laid on his horn, as if our interaction was simply an inconvenience, and I screamed, either fucking help me or go around. I thought about her in that moment, knowing that there would be no one there for me. The first time I saw a living deer in Minneapolis, the irony, iron bars surrounding them, eating grass on top of graves off of Lake Street, and I think about my grave. If there will be any deer over it, or if it will just be on the side of the road, nothing but bones and dirt, nothing recognizable, nothing to be remembered, not even the outline of a deer, of a body, of a woman. I think about the first time I saw a living deer in Minneapolis, and I wonder if I am them, living in a cemetery, or if I will be roadkill. This one's called Everything. You took everything from me. Everything I loved. I screamed to the emptiness of a car in a hospital garage. And I cry to God, or the lack thereof a God. You took everything I loved from me. I say, dialing a hospice number, explaining to the nurse, no, you don't have to explain this to me. No, I just went through this before and I know the steps by heart. You took everything from me. I say under my breath after I talk to lawyers about money and fares. Dying is so expensive. And signing continuous checks and affidavits in my soon-to-be late mother's name. You took everything from me. I say, driving past the funeral home that buried my father, soon to be my mother. You took everything from me. I messaged my pastor late at night. Would it be so awful if I stopped believing in God? And he replied, for you, I don't think he would be mad. A pastoral permission to stop believing as I stray away, and set up last rites for my mother. You took everything from me, I say, exhausted to the emptiness of a car, awaiting an answer, as if I expected that I was owed any in the first place. This one's called Last Haircut. And for those watching, I am a barber, and I was the last person to give my dad a haircut before he passed away. I pick up your head gingerly as you're lost inside nearly rotted, nearly all cancer, wrapped nerve endings, the duality of a deathbed now barber chair. I drape a towel around your pillow to give you one last haircut. It will only be a few days now. Clippers thrum against temples, the rattling of respirations. I am leaning over you while a safety rail digs into my thigh. The haircut is short and neat, too short, but a skin-tight fade was the best I could do to camouflage the bald spot from the radiation. I leave the top a little long. I wish your curls weren't so oily. As soon as you die, last breath barely seeping through the window, I gather a bowl and water and a razor. I've been your barber for 7 years. No mortician will finish what I started. I wash the face of a face that needed to be washed, cold and damp from sweat, from death. I asked my mother to stay in the room with me as I shave your face, skin taut, your jaw is locked. You had been moaning for days, and I pat your face dry and spray your roots so that it has its dark color again. And I wait for what feels like hours for the mortician to carry your body out. I'm complimented at the funeral for the freshness of your haircut. No one can quite look at me, though, when I tell them that I cut your hair and shaved your face after you died. But every dapper man deserves to start the afterlife a clean-shaven one. And let's see. This one is called Wishing Well. I toss pennies into wishing wells, and I'm tired of being able to passively say what a tragedy when it's just another Wednesday. I wish cigarettes didn't kill you, but at least they're honest. I toss pennies into wishing wells, every wish wrapped around the ridges of a coin, hoping that they come true. While my wishes taste copper, taste metal, taste like the word tragedy. Whenever I hear news, knowing it's just another Wednesday. Tragedy tastes like cigarettes when you answer the phone, hearing that it's cancer, 2 parents in 2 years. I wish cigarettes didn't kill you. I wish jeans didn't betray you. When your only hope of living a long life is to toss pennies into fountains. I wonder what will kill me. Cancer, a school shooter, maybe a man who said I didn't smile wide enough. I want to toss pennies into fountains, hoping wishing wells are real and hoping I live a long life. This one's a little short one. 6:45. I still find myself grappling out of my bed and slugging on a shirt or something that covers my body, but it's still never enough. The clothing doesn't envelop me or swallow me whole. 6:47. I'm in the car as my cold fingers trace the padding of a steering wheel, wishing that I could keep driving, wishing that my life wasn't on autopilot. But I know I have somewhere to be, and I'm always held hostage by a daily schedule. It's 6:48, and I'm almost at work, lips shaped to fit another cigarette. The worst part of it all is that even when you receive life-shattering news, you can't waver in the in-between. When 6:45 rolls around, you still have to go to work. Also, fuck whoever keeps lighting off fireworks. July 4th is over. America didn't deserve a goddamn birthday to begin with. Keep that in the video. All right. This one's called Silent Churches. Churches grew silent after you died. I felt I could hear a pin drop. Online sermons and outdoor congregations brought preachers with words I couldn't hear. Sermons sounded muffled, no breaking of the bread, no faces that seemed friendly enough to break bread with. Churches fell silent to me. I could not hear God in the Psalms nor in the homily. Mouths prayed with voices that made no sound. After you died, I felt God leave my church. I could not tell if he left because he just could or because he was asking me to follow him. Wherever he is leading me, I hope I hear a voice soon because I'm sitting in a church surrounded by congregants, but I hear no sound. This one, just a little trigger warning. This is a little bit of a heavier religious poem. I'm hoping that the fireworks update. They have not stopped. All right. This one's called Kneeling. I want God on his knees at an altar before me, while I sit adjacent to a tabernacle with my body and blood under lock and key, which is simply coffee and cigarettes. I want God on his knees and praying an Our Daughter prayer where he tells me his sins are forgotten, him the trespasser, him the debtor. I want him to apologize to me, to my mother, to my father, to a congregation of 4 now too. I want God on his knees. I want God to apologize to me where I was baptized in a hospice room and he can make a sign of the cross with the residue of morphine on his forehead. I want him to be present as I watched them die, while gasp of breath turned into nothingness where he should have been there. I want God on his knees, praying for my forgiveness, for leaving me alone in a world where things aren't going to get better. With the audacity that I'm supposed to still pray to him, I want God to pray to me, for taking care of the sick and the dying like he was supposed to. I want God on his knees, where he can see where I did his job, where he didn't. And I want him to know that there isn't reconciliation for him. And I don't want one for my blasphemy either. And then this one is called Don't Look at Me.
Lord have mercy.
Just let me know if I need to stop. I got a whole little set list.
Oh, please don't. Me and Miss Stacy have nothing.
Honey, you are good to go. Okay.
This is called Don't Look at Me. The worst thing about having a dead dad is that he can't not be dead for like 5 fucking seconds. At every wedding, when someone squeezes my shoulder during the father-daughter dance as if they think it's helping, when in reality, it feels like you are now shining the spotlight at me being the girl with the dead dad. And the looks I get, the small sighs, the exhale of grief, as if I wasn't aware that you feel sorry for me, as if I wasn't embarrassed that I need to fundraise to bury him. Bury me in the unwanted stares. I just want to close my eyes every time I talk about him now so that no one looks at me that way that old church women do when they realize that no one can walk me down the aisle. The worst thing about having a dead dad is that he can't not be dead for like 5 fucking seconds, for conversation's sake, for sanity's sake, for the worst part of having your mom get diagnosed with liver cancer a year and a half after losing your father to brain cancer is that I've run out of patience. When people say, I can't imagine how you feel. Good. I'm not asking you to. Now just pass me another cigarette. All right, this one is called Inheritance. Inheritance tastes like licked fingers silvered by the residue of cashing in a few $100 at a coin stop at 11 p.m. on a Sunday night. Inheritance feels like a neatly slipped $20 bill in a graduation card signed, Love Mom and Dad, even though they won't ever be there. Inheritance is a last I love you gift and a reminder that I never get to fuck up. I never get to fall down because no one is there to catch me. There's no mom and dad's basement to go to live there when I'm 35 until 40. There is no mom and dad. and the house isn't ours. And it's now remodeled and stripped away of any evidence of us ever living there. Inheritance feels like knowing the weight of how much a human life is worth, feels empty, feels like a single check, feels like not enough, never enough, feels like money can't hug you at Christmas, feels like you're carrying 100,000 pennies and hearing them being counted one by one at the Coinstar at Walmart at 11 p.m. Let's see. And then I just have a few more. This one was kind of like an avant-garde one. This was like just like about a weird dream I had. There's a fleeting pang of anxiety at the concrete steps of a familiar church, a church of funerals, of eulogies, of mistings, of foreheads of renewal baptismal vows. This isn't a baptism, but I'm standing there in a white dress with with no other person to be found. And it's my wedding day. It's in a hollowed out old church. Pews are filled with whispers, but there are very few scattered bodies in the pews now, but faces are misty, a haze of familiarity, but nothing close enough to be recognizable. You stand there in the church doors, thanking me for your invitation, and you tell me you always imagined seeing me on my wedding day, but with you at the altar and not in a pew. And I tell you that there isn't going to be a wedding. There was never going to be a wedding, not with anyone else other than you. There is silence now. The clamoring and whispers of the church have stopped. And now I'm suddenly alone in the church, feet over marble, stained glass overhead, and I'm wanting of a wedding day without having any idea of who the bride is. All right, and then I have two more. This one's just like a little fun one. This one's called Birthday Gifts and Running Shoes. An early birthday present to myself in this upcoming year is one of movement. The permission to abandon everything. I find myself not digging my heels into dirt, wanting stability, but using it as traction, as if I am running. They say you can't run away from your problems, but with frequent flyer miles, I'd like to disagree. I've packed my life into small bags, bounced from city to city, don't stay long enough for people to miss you, but just long enough for you to be remembered. Remember, it doesn't stop the grief or the emptiness, but I'd rather be somewhere exciting than in my hometown where faces are blank. They feel familiar but foggy, and I'm so tired of everything feeling so fucking foggy. Is it running from your problems if the problem was stillness and stagnation? Is it running away from home if home is just a house now? I'm learning to be okay with sadness sitting in the room when joy is present, as long as sadness is the only guest and not the host. Is it running away when you're not running from, but towards someplace that feels like home? What better gift to give yourself than the gift of buying yourself a big bag and some running shoes? And then my last poem is one that I like to end with because it was inspired by Stacy. So I always like to read it. This one's called Gold Throat. Where is talent? What if you're not always born with it? What if it's birthed from a womb that couldn't nurture it? From the bearing of rawness from the clenching of jaws? What if poetry is not something to create, but to capture, to hold it down and put it on a page to encapsulate it? I was told my poetry is not polished. It's rough like hands of people who work. My poetry is one of unearthing gravesides as I unbury relatives so you can see them. I've heard polished poetry is boring. I didn't have the time to polish my grief in between the measurings of morphine doses for a dying father, nor a dying mother. I only had the rawness of words. I write poetry for those who know it doesn't get better, it gets different, and that's okay. If someone tells me there's a silver lining, I hope it's one made of wire so I can strangle you with it. A woman told me I'm a woman with gold in my throat, and I wonder if that's why I'm always choking on every fucking word. Did I ever have a lisp? Or maybe I just spoke in stanzas, and I'm a woman with unrefined gold in her throat. I'm not polished. No, I'm accessible for you to get the message that it's okay, that grief won't ever go away. It doesn't get better, it gets different. There's still company for the living, and there's still gold to be found. And that's all I have for tonight.
Oh my God.
I mean, that's all. That's everything.
Everything.
That was gorgeous, honey.
Thank you.
Beautiful. Jesus Christ. Oh my God.
The one about all of them. But the one about the thing about having a dead dad is real. That hit me on just about every level I've got. That was inspired.
Thank you.
Gigi, every single piece, my dear, you showed us your heart and it's raw. What do you say? Your poetry is raw like those of working hands. Fuck yes.
Thank you.
Stacey said she wouldn't have jumped you in if you were soft and nice and pearl clutching. That was an
I don't think we have anybody like that.
no, right? Excuse you, I clutch my pearls all the time.
You don't even know how to spell pearl. Give me a break.
Oh, Gigi, that was
Just absolutely
waterproof.
really waterproof mascara for those of us who need it. Because we have a little bit of time. Because it's been a while since I spoke to you. Talk to me about process a little bit. I'm curious.
So a lot of my poetry, it's written very like spur of the moment. I just kind of like if something hits me, if there's like a word or a phrase or dog barking, um, I usually start to write when the pandemic had first broken out, and my dad was diagnosed with a glioblastoma a week after lockdown. And so I had just started writing poetry, and so every night before I went to bed, so around like 11 or 12, I just dedicated time to writing poetry, and that's where I've written most of it. And then usually I'll also try and write something when I'm at like a local open mic. Like I always like to kind of just like create pieces in art spaces. And then it's I don't always like, there are some poems that they're only ever performed once. Just because, I look at old poetry and it's not where I am anymore. And so I've definitely, whenever I've tried to do a feature, I've just picked something that feels still relevant, but it's always, I don't know, it's always kind of cool, like looking back and seeing either how far I've come or what's changed. So yeah, I've just kind of written a lot about the experiences that I've dealt with the past 3 years of having lost both my parents to 2 different kinds of cancer pretty consecutively, one after another. So yeah, a lot of poems written in cars and in hospital rooms. So yeah.
That's a poem in itself.
Yeah.
So, and unfortunately, I get it. Unfortunately.
God, I hate.
Okay, your mic just died. I got half of what you just said.
I said I hate the 4th of July and people with fireworks.
It started here, what, 2 days early? And it's like, y'all, first of all, I'm not celebrating. And secondly, you are welcome to do so, but not for 2 days before and 2 days after. Because,
I'm not sure if it's like the pilgrim ghosts that influence people in Massachusetts to start fireworks as early as they do, but it is a month-long event.
It's always a pilgrim, 100%. You're right.
Oh, absolutely. Every 3-decker haunted as all.
So
And
somewhere the ghost of Constant Silence Goodbody is just, rising in shame. Of course, they'd probably think that it was dancing and stoner anyway, so,
that's fair. Oh,
I'm getting some weird feedback. Oh, I said that was sterling, and the entire world should have witnessed it. But quite honestly, I'm glad that we got this little private
me
show.
too.
It, what shall I say? Spirit affirming, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm breathing a little bit easier than I have all week.
Gigi, and just the way, like, I hate to say most of my friends have, been in a long relationship with grief their entire lives, but just the way you sew that onto a surface that can comfort so many people. You know what I mean? And it's just like the rage and the pain and the love, it just comes out of every single piece. And I say that sincerely, like it was just such an honor to witness your painful but beautiful journey, because not 1 second of it could have been easy. And I am grateful for the beautiful soul that your parents left us, because otherwise, DeSoto would have an empty void. So thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. I think the one thing that I'd probably like to end on is that I was very lucky, because like a lot of times people have very complicated relationships with grief when their parents die, but like I got to be there with my parents the entirety of them dying, and I was very close with my parents. My parents are very loving and accepting, so like it was awful, but like there's no regret for this like love that was shared for the last moment. So
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. So I'm going to go ahead and take us on out, Sandy, unless there's something else that you want to add, or, Gigi, I hesitate to even ask after that set, but if you've got something else that you want to add, feel free.
No, this was wonderful. And I'm glad it was with you too.
I think we should send it to the stars how it was delivered. Thank you so much, Gigi.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, blessings on and blessings for everybody who sees this, everybody who was here. We have a whole array of sort of women doing fantastic things all the way up until November the 20th of this year. So, y'all who are seeing this other times in other places, make sure to check our website, www.firesingers.com, and check out what we're doing, because whatever it is guaranteed to blow up and or melt the mic. Have a fantastic weekend, and we will see you somewhere around the way.
Bye. Good night, everyone.